This is a series on C for embedded systems. Check out the playlist for other videos. In this video, let's look at the for loop in C. The loop is a fundamental programming tool to repeat a block of statements until some condition is met. Basically, loop is a tool for us to execute set of statements or a block of statements repeatedly until a condition is met. So in C, for loop is a control flow statement that allows you to repeatedly execute a block of code a specific number of times. So if it includes a specific number of times, then a for loop is very useful. So let's understand for loop. So the general pattern of for loop is you have a for keyword. So we need to write for keyword, then open the brackets or the braces, then starting condition. You need to provide the starting condition for the loop. Then you have to provide a continuation condition where it is a condition which is tested whether to iterate for the next iteration or not. Then action per iteration. So basically this condition will be uh, basically so whatever the starting condition is there. So such, for example, a variable would be updated here. So this is the action per iteration. And then you have a loop statement. This is what is going to get executed in the for loop. And you have the next statement followed by for loop. So this is a general syntax of a for loop. So the statement to be repeated is represented by a loop statement, as I said here. So in general, this could equally well be a block of several statements enclosed between the braces. So here if you see, you have only one statement, the loop statement, and the same can be a block of code with several statements in it. So that is enclosed with the braces. Okay, so now we understood the syntax of for loop. So let's understand what is starting condition, what it means, a continuous condition, then action per iteration. So the starting condition is usually sets an initial value to loop control variable. So here the loop control variable is typically, but not necessarily, a counter of some kind that tracks how often the loop has been repeated. You can also declare and initialize several variables of the same type here with the declaration separated by commas. In this case, all the variables will be local to the loop and will not exist once the loop ends. So what it means is that, let's say you have a for loop. So for, and then you open the brackets. Then let's say I declare a variable called int I. This is a loop variable. Okay, and the starting condition is, let's say, is equal to 0. So this is a starting condition, and you can have one or more loop variables or starting conditions for the loop. Next is the continuation condition, which is a logical expression evaluating a true or false. So this determines whether the loop should continue to be executed. As long as this condition has the value true, the loop continues. It typically checks the value of the loop control variable, but you can put any logical or arithmetic expression here as long as you know what you're doing. So what it means is that after you have initialized this variable or an initial condition, then you actually check. So for example, I will do if I, let's say, is less than 10, this is a condition. Sorry, this is a continuation condition. So as long as I is less than 10, the loop will continue. So that is the understanding here. And the continuation condition is tested at the beginning of the loop rather than at the end. So this obviously means that the loop statement will not be executed at all if the condition or continuous condition starts out as false. So in this case, for example, if I is, let's say, I do initialize 10, then the loop will not execute because I equal to less than 10 is going to be tested or executed before it starts the execution of a for loop. So this is the condition which executes prior to executing the loop. Okay, so that's the understanding. Then you have the action per iteration. So this is executed at the end of each loop iteration. So it is usually, but again not necessarily, an increment or decrement of one or more of loop control variables. So where several variables are modified, you separate the expressions that modify the variables by commas. At each loop iteration, loop statement is executed. The terminated, the loop is terminated and execution continues with next statement as soon as the continuation condition is false. So here the action is, what I will do is I'll separate, then I do an I++. So what it means is that you have a for loop where the initial condition I equal to 0, and then it checks if the I is 10, less than 10. If it is so, it will continue to execute the for loop, and then end of the loop, it will increment I++. It is as simple as I equal to I plus 1. So this is like once the loops, everything is executed, I is equal to I plus 1 or I plus plus will be executed. So that is what it means. Now let's look at the example. The first example is display the numbers from 1 to 10. So here, instead of writing the statement to call printf multiple times, then all that we can do is for int count equal to 1. So this is the initialization. The count is less than or equal to 10, the plus plus count, then print percentile d, then count. So that means you're just printing I plus plus, so printing the numbers. So here you can see that starting condition is count equal to 1. The continuation condition is 10, count is less than or equal to 10. Action per iteration is count plus plus. The loop statement is just a print. So well, here this is a pictorial representation of what exactly it means. So this expression executes once when the loop starts. So this is an expression that executes only once when the loop starts. So it declares a count and initializes to 1. So it declares the int count and initializes to 1. Then this is expression. The count less than or equal to 10 is an expression is evaluated at the beginning of each loop cycle. So if it is true, the loop continues, and if it is false, the loop ends. It's as simple as that. We have plus plus count. This expression is executed at end of every loop cycle if it increments the count. So once the loop is completes execution of this block, then the control comes to this and it increments or executes this plus plus count. That is how the for loop works. So let's try and execute this in our code. So this is a for loop where display numbers from 1 to 10. So I will just uh, compile this code, gcc for loop.c. Then you have a.exe file. Then you can see that it just printed 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 and 10. So that's the first part. So where int count initialization initial condition, this is a condition check, and this is the incrementing the count, and here we print the count. So well, in the second example, we just do a sum of integers from 1 to count. So let's let's do this. So here the loop statement is empty, it's just the semicolon after the closing parenthesis. This expression adds value of I to sum and then increments I for the next iteration. So here you can see that this part of code where the for unsigned int I equal to 1, I is less than or equal to count, and sum equal to sum plus 1, sum plus I plus plus. So basically this is sum equal to sum plus I plus plus. So this is how it evaluates. So where what we're interested in just the sum. So that means so we don't have to have uh, a statement within the statement to execute in the for loop, because it will already be executed as part of the action statement here. Okay, so let's try to execute this code here. So the one important is if you do an if zero, it's an hash define. If zero, this is a better way of commenting or the code. Commenting means uh, just that it will be pre-processed, and since the if zero is if is false, hash if is false, the anything that between if zero and end if will not be compiled. I will just make it 1 here so that it will compile. Now you can see that we have declared a long sum and then unsigned int count equal to 0. You can see that we could have done this initialization inside the for loop also. Then printf enter the number of integers you want to sum, then scanf. Oh, sorry. So this is basically the count is the number of integers to be summed. So that is the number to be added, or till what number you want to add up to. Well, so now let's compile this code. Then a.exe. So you can see that enter the number of integers you want to sum. Let's say I will add 10 here. You can see that the total number of first 10 numbers is total of the first 10 numbers is 55. So that's correct. So you can see that this expression is something which calculates the sum, and it is part of the for loop itself. It's not part of the statement to be executed for loop, but it is within the brackets. So I hope this is clear. So let me just comment this part of the code and then execute the other one. So before that, I'll give you a heads up of what it is. Well, a loop with no parameters. So minimum for loop looks like this. A for loop with no parameters means you have a for and then with two semicolons inside the parenthesis you have a statement. So this is basically an infinite loop. So the loop body could be single statement or it could be uh, and but when there are no loop parameters, it is usually a block of statements. Okay, so because the condition of for executing the loop is absent, the loop will continue indefinitely. That means this is infinite loop. This is an important concept. So let's say you want to execute something indefinitely or infinitely, you can use this syntax. So the infinite loop using for loop is just the for and then two semicolons, close the bracket. So everything else inside this will be infinite loop. Or if you just write this, the code will repeat itself infinitely. Okay, so the next important concept is the break statement in a loop. So here the break statement is basically to break out of the loop. So as soon as you find a break in the loop, it just breaks out and comes out of the loop. So here you have a loop that will potentially execute indefinitely. The scanf function reads a character into an answer. If the character entered is n or n, the break statement will be executed. So like this, let's understand this. Let's execute and understand how this works. Okay, so what I've done is char answer. This is the answer character that is captured from the command line. So do you want to enter some more? If I say yes, then it will capture. And if it is either capital N or small n, depending on the answer, if it is equal, then you will have a break. Otherwise, it will not break. So let's compile this code. So let's see if it executes. So a.exe. Okay, so do you want to enter some more? Yes. Do you want to enter some more? Let's say anything other than G. So you see, I'm entering so many different characters. It is not exiting, it just accepts. And the moment if I enter N, it's the code gets stopped. So that means we have the break. It breaks out and then it returns 0. But it is end of the main. So that is how it works. I hope you understood the importance of break. So we use a lot of break in switch cases and even in other loops like while and do while loops as well. So this is basically to break out of this uh, the block of code. So that is what is important concept here. Okay, so with this we have understood for loop in C, and then how to use how to write an infinite loop, and how to use a break in for loop. This is the same context for this is the same concept to break out from any of the loops. Okay, so that's all for this episode. Thanks for watching.
Subscribe to the channel for more projects, courses, tutorials, and tools.